Wow. Thank you, Jan, for what surely must be the most recent introduction that I've had. And that was sterling. I was a little history trip down memory lane there. Christina, thank you as well. And Steve, the organ player, I don't know where you went, but man, I love you because that was surely the coolest and most weirdest introduction music I've ever had by a factor of about 7. So thanks for that. Hello, everyone. Or perhaps for many of you in the audience, this would make you feel more comfortable. I design automobiles, and I've done that since 1980. And I think when I was asked to come here, everyone thought that I was going to come and talk about automobiles tonight. I've decided I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about love. And I feel particularly qualified to talk about this. I've been married for 26 years, on and off, and so I feel like I have some history with love, both the ups and the downs. And what I really want to talk about tonight is how love in relationships and love in products are very, very similar. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. If you think about the relationship people have with an automobile, I think it's the same relationship you have with a spouse or significant other. You sort of decide to buy a car because you're prepared to spend a part of your life with it, and that's the same thing as a relationship. So we'll get into that and explore that just a little bit this evening. Let me go back just a little bit, and Jan mentioned that I was from Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. Those were very boring years, but I just want to go back. That was me 9 years old. So I was dull, and I had never seen anything. My dad decided we were going to fly from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, up to Kansas City. And I don't know if it was luck or just good fortune, but he booked us on this airline called Braniff International. Now, any of you that are a little bit older in the audience will know that this was a super cool airline in the 60s because they had Alexander Calder paint job on the outside. Pucci did all of the uniforms for what were then called stewardesses, and now we call flight attendants. And I thought, gosh, this is going to be great. So not only was my excitement of flying for the first time going to the airport, but when I got to the airport, I saw this waiting at the plane. These were the flight attendants. And I was like, I thought, this is going to be great. So my dad, being as cheap as he was, had booked us back in the economy section. The plane was almost empty, and we had just taken off, and one of these women, and I swear they looked just like that, came back and said, "Mr. Mays, would your son like to sit up in first class?" And so I was like, yes, I would. And so I was up and out of the seat, and so I was sitting there, little 9-year-old Jay, in first class, and she said, "Sir, can I get you something to drink?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I would love a 7-Up." And she brought me a 7-Up in a martini glass, and she said, "Sir, would you like an olive in that?" And I said, "Oh, yes, please, I'd like an olive." And so there I was, sitting there 9 years old, and it has completely ruined my life forever. So that's where it all went south. Okay, he really did do cool stuff. Look at that. That's what they wore when there was rain outside, because there was no such thing as a jetway in those days. But it's just extraordinary. All right, let's get back to love. Love is a really difficult thing, because in order to have love, you really need to understand love's homely cousin, respect. Now, respect is all made up of performance, trust, reputation, sort of all the hygiene factors you're going through when you're deciding if you want to have a relationship with someone or something. But if you don't have respect, you're probably not going to have love. Love, on the other hand, is the sexy part. Mystery, sensuality, intimacy. These are the reasons that you fall in love with someone. You don't fall in love with your girlfriend because she's inherently practical. There's no reason that you would do that. The respect has to be there, and then all of this great stuff happens. I want to call your attention to a book called Love Marks. It was written by the CEO of Kevin Roberts. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight, which is, by the way, love and how to get it in products, is pretty much easy to find in both of these books, The Love Mark Effects and The Future Beyond Brands, Love Marks. And you can find those at powerhousebooks.com. I'm not selling, I don't get a cut, it's just a great book. Kevin came up with this principle that if you create a horizontal axis of love and a vertical axis of respect, then you can place your product, brand, and by the way, you can be an engineer, you can be an architect, you can own a restaurant, you can be a fashion designer, you can be in the culinary arts, it doesn't matter. This will come in useful. Place your brand, place your product, in this case, I will place some products for you, onto this chart, and you'll see how much trouble you're in. Because if you look at this chart, you'll see there's low love, and there's high love, and there's low respect, and there's high respect. If you've got low respect and high love, you're a fad. So somewhere between a pet rock and Paris Hilton, that's where you are. Toilet paper falls into the commodities, and I suppose you can love toilet paper, but I really wouldn't want to know about that. High love and high respect, that equals brands. That's where the majority of products that we interact with live. Brands are just all over the place, and we have sometimes love for them, but more than likely we have respect for them. But the brands that we absolutely crave, the ones that we go to church for, are the ones that have high respect and high love. And if you're going to matter in this world, and if you're going to create things, regardless of what it is, that's where you want to end up. You want to end up in the upper right-hand quadrant. So love is pretty interesting. So let's look for love. And it always helps if you say that like Barry White, looking for love. Now, if you're looking for love, you'll find that there are products or brands or services that are unknown. You'll find that there's ones that are known. There are ones that are known for something. You'll find products or brands that are known for something different. You'll find products or brands that are known for something people care about. And ultimately, you'll find ones that are known for something people love. And that's where we want to get to. So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's talk about smartphones for a second. A Pantech Jest. Not such a great phone. Never heard of it. It's a value proposition. It's a commodity. You won't remember it next week. HTZ Ozone. Yeah, not bad, but still a commodity. Palm Pixie, not quite as good as a Palm Pre, still a value proposition, not interested. Motoroid Droid X, okay, starting to get interesting. I know Motorola, I know the Droid X, that's not too bad a phone. BlackBerry Storm, new Wi-Fi feature, kind of like that. How many BlackBerry users do we have in the audience? Good, this is going well. Now, I bet you know the answer, but if I was to ask you, what is the most loved smartphone, not only in Michigan, not only in the United States, but the entire world, what would you say? Good, I can continue the presentation. It is true. An Apple iPhone, even with the dodgy antenna, was just the best. And it is a great thing to have. And I just got a new iPhone 4, and I love it. In fact, there is nothing, if Apple were to make toilets, I would buy one. They're just, so I like to take apps that are useful in meetings, and this is a particularly good one. You can always tell that it's a lot of fun to talk to an audience when you have teeth in your mouth. So these kinds of things have made the iPhone, through the apps, just one of the coolest things. And you can't really put your finger on it because it's nothing practical about it. It's just kind of cool. Let me show you another example. Now, I'm not here to show any disrespect toward any of the brands that I could name in automotive brands, but I will tell you there are brands that are unknown, there are brands that are known, there are a lot of commodities out there. And I will tell you where Ford finds itself today. Ford finds itself right there. So as much as I would like to say we're in the upper right-hand quadrant, we're a brand. We're known for something different, and I know we're known that we didn't take the loan from the government, but we're also known for a lot of cool cars now, because we've been working hard over the last 5 years to produce cars that people actually desire as opposed to need. And when you think about some of the products, and I'll show you a few in a minute, that we've got, that wasn't on the cards 5 years ago. And again, little audience participation, if I was to ask you, what is the most famous, most desired, coolest, hottest automotive brand in the world, you would probably say, Ferrari. Okay, yes, it is Ferrari. And someone had said Hyundai or something down here. Ferrari. And because that's the car that, regardless of age, for the last 40 years, every teenage boy has always hung on the bedroom wall next to various sex goddesses of the decades. And it's just a great brand. And when you think about Ferrari, you think about the most powerful, super, fantastic red sports cars in the world. And they are absolutely beautiful. So you start to see how this works. If I do just automotive nameplates, not just brands, but nameplates, and I can name a few in Michigan. Chevy Camaro, I would say that Chevy probably would think that the Camaro is a love mark. It's a fabulous car, and you get excited when you see it. So for men of a certain age, that's a pretty cool car. Back over in Dearborn, we feel the exact same way about this car. And it just absolutely hits the mark. So it's filled with testosterone, and guys that are, and I call everyone guys that are 17 to 70 still love this car. And as we approach 2014 and the 50th anniversary, this is possibly the most well-known, popular nameplate in the world. Jan mentioned the work I did on the Audi TT. We're very proud of that still, even though I haven't been at Audi in years. I still look back on that product and am quite happy to say that we put Audi to a large degree on the map with that car. I'm sure many of you in the audience probably know someone with one of these. I think it's just one of the coolest cars in the world right now, still just super hot in terms of sales. And Chrysler is about to be bringing this car into the States as well. All of these are love marks. All of them have a story. All of them have a reason for being. And then probably one of my favorites. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to make sure you were listening. Okay, so Ricardo Montalban is not one of my favorites. All right. Let's talk about the three things that matter most. If you're going to design a product, you're probably going to be doing it for a company. So you want that product to be true to the brand. You want it to be meaningful to the customer, and you want it to be differentiated from the competition. And all joking aside, if you take anything home from this presentation, take this slide right here home. True to the brand, meaningful to the customer, differentiated from the competition. And every car that I've shown you this evening up on the screen fulfills that quota right there. So if you've designed a product and you think, well, I like it, but the customer doesn't, whoops. You kind of want to get every one of those, and you can almost be guaranteed of a successful product in the marketplace. True to the brand? Well, at Ford, that means one thing. It means fun to drive. And we represent fun to drive with something we call kinetic design. And it looks like this on the Ford Fiesta, which is just now available in the marketplace here in the United States. We've already sold about 1 million of these worldwide. And it's just great looking design. It's exciting. This is a B car, and you still want to get in it and drive it. New Ford Focus ST, which will be in the States later this year. That is a cool car for the US. Nice seats. Meaningful to the customer. This is where marketing will screw you up, so pay attention. Marketing talks about millennials, and millennials were born somewhere between 78 and, depending on who you ask, about 1994. Well, these guys are millennials, 1980. 5 years later, whoops, they look a little different. 1985, still millennials. 5 years later, those are millennials too. So thank you, marketing, that was helpful. If they talk about millennials, you can't do that anymore. Because of the internet, everything is changing at such a rapid pace that in countries like China, and these were some slides that I brought back from the Beijing show last year, whole generations are changing every 3 to 5 years. So just because someone happened to be born in a 10-year time slot, not a chance that you're going to understand who they are unless you bore down into it. Forget it. Differentiated from the competition. That's an important one. How many design students do we have in the audience tonight? 3. No. Engineers? Okay, good. Well, think about this as well. And I'm just going to show you some automotive interiors, in just a second. If you ask 80% of the CEOs around the world if their products are fully differentiated in the eyes of the customer, or if you ask them all, 80% of CEOs will tell you, oh yeah, which is great. I mean, 80% of CEOs must know that their products are different from the competition. If you ask the customers, 8% agree with them. So clearly something has gone awry in the product development process as a product hits the market. And you always hear about things looking the same from every manufacturer. There's the problem. No one's thinking about the customer. Look at this. This is not mine, by the way. I'd just like to point out. This is 2 or 3 different concept car interiors. They're all from different manufacturers, and they all look exactly the same, like a big goopy mess of wet spaghetti. They're just horrid. They've got no message. They're all special effects and flash photography and explosions, and I have no idea what they're trying to say. And most customers don't know either. So you've got to have a point of view before you start designing something. With the start concept that you saw outside, we tried to take the point of view of true, meaningful, and differentiated. So let's talk about true to the brand. We wanted to have a driver-centric cockpit layout, digital analog gauges, 3-spoke steering wheel. Why? Because Fords are fun to drive, and that is shorthand for saying that Fords are sporty, they're driver-centric, and they look like they'd be a kick just to toss around a corner. So when we designed the interior of the Start, deceptively simple interior. Really, really simple. 3-spoke steering wheel, which is again shorthand for sporty, shorthand for fun to drive. Big gauges, which say the same thing. Sounds pretty simple, but you can see from those other interiors, the competition doesn't think that way. Meaningful to the customer? Well, we have a thing that we realize that everybody wants what they can't have. Everybody would love to have a Beamer. Everybody would love to have a Bentley, but they can't afford it. So you still want to be unexpectedly upmarket. You want to offer customers more than they think they're getting for their dollar. You'd like to have a smartphone dock, because all of us have smartphones, and you want to be ecologically sound, 3-cylinder, 1-liter EcoBoost. Looks pretty upmarket to me. Dock for my smartphone, 3-cylinder EcoBoost, and a pretty good looking 3-cylinder EcoBoost on top of it. And finally, differentiated from the competition. Clutter-free interior, pared down design, because we're living in a world with nothing but design noise. Think about it. There's so much noise out there that you simply cannot cut through the clutter to hear what's going on. That's why phones like the Apple iPhone resonate with people, because they're so deceptively simple, people can get their head around that. You look at every other phone in the market, they've got more buttons than a band uniform. And you just think, no, I don't want that. Panoramic visibility for safety. Really simple. panoramic visibility, see-through D-pillar, C-pillar for great visibility. And as you can see, we take quite a lot of care to design all of that. So when you look at this car, you're looking at about 3 lines on the car, just 3 gestures. And you've kind of got to know where those gestures go, and then you don't have to mess around with all the other noise that goes in the car, because the 3 lines say it for you. They say fun to drive, and simplicity, and clutter-free. So let me just show you a really quick video of this car that we did when we launched it in Beijing, and then I'll come back with a couple of closing remarks. Have a look at this. So, really simple car. And when you think about it, and then think about as you walk past that car and back out on the street tonight, and look at all the other cars up and down the road, think about how complex they are. And the clarity of that, I think, will start to resonate with you. I thought it'd be fun to come here tonight, but I also wanted to leave you with some thoughts that are pretty important to me, because they're thoughts that if you don't use them, at least I think, it's going to be difficult for you to move forward with a career. So a lot of you are engineers, a lot of you are designers, whatever field you're in, you've got to get noticed. So if you're going to be a car designer or a product designer, you've got to be artistic, clearly, but you've got to use your noggin as well. And before you start being artistic, stop a minute to think. The other thing is, don't do this. Don't be blinded by design. There is so much bad design out there in the world right now, and it comes on a daily basis. It's transient, it's throwaway, nobody will remember it in 2 months' time, and that's not the kind of design you want to be doing. You want to be doing design that people in 10 to 20 years look back and go, wow, that sort of changed the world, or that set the world off on a different path. That's stuff that leaves a legacy for you as you work your way through a career. Hit the reset button. And by that, I mean, whatever you're thinking about right now, and I bet a lot of you have got projects going on, go home tonight and just sit down and think, gee, is this too complicated? Am I trying too hard to make my statement, but nobody else is going to get it? Because art that only appeals to 3 people ain't art. It's going to be your little statement, but nobody else is going to get it. So hit the reset button and just think about rebooting the project and rebooting the way you think about it. Jan mentioned the story, and I really do believe that products need to have a storyline. They need to have some reason that they reach out and tug on the emotional heartstrings of people. So it doesn't have to be a story about an old car that you've updated. The start certainly isn't that. The start's all about simplicity and fun to drive, and I think it tells it in a fresh and, has to be said, very lovable way, because it's so round, you just kind of like to get your hands around it. But stay on story. Once you've decided what the story is, then don't deviate from that and feel like you've got to create all this noise, because when you start creating noise in your design, it starts to make the design so confusing, no one will hear the story. And there's a lot of loud design out there right now. Look to the edges. This is going to be really hard when you actually get out of school and get into a company. Because every company that you go to, regardless, and I include Ford in that, will try to push you to the middle, because that's where marketing feels safe. And that's where most executives will feel safe spending $100 million, $5 billion, and I recognize that's a lot of money, but you're not going to interest anyone because no one's going to notice you. So get out of the middle of the aisle, get to the edges of the room. That's where you'll get noticed because your car will differentiate or your other product will differentiate itself. Be brand-led. That goes back to my true to the brand statement. If somebody tries to tell you that you need to be consumer-led or customer-led, tell them that's wrong. Be customer-informed, but you don't chase customers. Customers come to you because they desire your brand. So be customer-informed, but brand-led. Really important. And finally, just make it magical. Because I've been in this business now, and it's hard to believe, about 32 years. I feel like I got out of school yesterday, although I graduated from Art Center back in 1980, and I still have absolutely the greatest enthusiasm to get up every morning and get into work because I think, man, I'm going to get to design a really cool car. And there's no better feeling for a car designer to see than their car driving down the road and who's in it. Because you see your car, you see the customer that it was clearly meaningful to, and it's a great feeling. Okay, that's my story. Thank you. And we'll be going over to answer some questions, so I appreciate you coming. Thank you.